Good day, students. I trust that you are well. For this session, we are going to be discussing Unit 6, Part 2 on the Integrated Mathematics program. All right, students. So as you're aware, we had an entire lecture on Part 1 where your lecturers have discussed the Integrated Mathematics program. We went over how mathematics is included or integrated in the daily program in a preschool environment. Now, students, although we discussed the assignment pretty much in detail in the lecture, I think it's very important for me to touch on other aspects of the assignment that we will be looking out for when we are marking your assignments, right? So students, this lecture is extremely important as well. And I trust that you will use the information or the guidance provided in this lecture, and you will plan suitable lesson plans based on this. Right, so for this assessment, students, you are going to be planning a mathematics outdoor activity or a game for the selected age group in term 3. Now, of course, if you've been placed, if you're a degree student this year, obviously you'll be selecting grade R. If you're a higher certificate foundation phase student, you'll be selecting a grade double naught or triple naught. And then our higher certificate IP students, you can select grades double naught, triple naught, or grade R, right? So please take note of that and plan your lessons accordingly. This mathematics outdoor game or activity has to be fun, it must be age appropriate, and it must be mathematically challenging. So don't just go and plan an activity for the sake of it, just to keep the learners occupied. There has to be an element of fun, but then there has to be some sort of learning that's taking place without the learners actually knowing that it's a lesson, right? Just as we described in our lectures. The learning area and the topic has been given to you because we've placed our class list on ECI, and you will notice that next to your name, we've also got the content area that you will be using and the resource that you will be using for your lesson. Please also note that the lesson plan that you're using is exactly the same as the one you use for the storytelling submission. I've already placed a blank template on ECI. If you click on the submission portal, you'll be able to download your copy from there. All right, also remember students that this is an outdoor activity or a game, and you are only allowed to use the content area and the resource that we have been providing to you. So when you're submitting this assessment, we are definitely going to be checking that you've used the content area and the resource. And the following resources that we use is the paper plate, toilet rolls, stones, sand, sticks, litter, and paper cups. Right? Although we have this list of resources, please note that your lecturer has already given you one resource, so you are not allowed to go and change it. However, students, we understand that one resource is not sufficient to plan an exciting activity or a game. So by all means, include other resources, not necessarily the ones that's provided here. Yes, you will use the one that we've given you. However, you can add other resources to make it a more fun, engaging, and exciting activity or game for your learners. You will then use the NCF document or your CAPS document for grade R, right? Remember that in the case of our higher certificate FP students, you generally use the NCF document when you are planning lessons for that age group. However, we will be a bit lenient this time around, and if you're using the CAPS document, we will also accept that. So go and find the learning area and the topic. Now, obviously, we've given you your learning area, which is your content area. So for example, if we've given you numbers, operations, and relationships, right? So you will then go on into the CAPS document. You'll open to the section in term 3. You will then find where numbers, operations, and relationships appears, right? I'm just using an example. And you will see what topics have been listed for that particular term. You will then use that topic and you will select content from there to plan your lesson or the activity game that you are going to include your learners in. So remember that, students, in your lesson plan, wherever you have selected that topic, you have to reference that page number. And please ensure that you make a copy of that page and you are submitting that in your lesson plan for assessment. This is very, very important because we need to check that the information that you've extracted corresponds to what you've used in the planning of your lesson. Right, we are asking you to plan this lesson for term 3. So you need to ensure that you are selecting the content from term 3. So the topic has to be from term 3. Remember to introduce your outdoor activity or game. You need to write a detailed explanation of your outdoor mathematics activity or game. Include in your explanation how you're going to manage your class, right? So for example, if you have an activity where 2 learners at a time are actually doing the game, what will the rest of the class be doing, right? So be mindful of the fact that these are little children. They cannot sit quietly for long period of times. They cannot observe for long period because they will get distracted. You will find that there's discipline issues. So what are you going to do to involve the rest of the class while a particular group is doing the activity? Are you planning an activity where you have perhaps 4 or 5 groups and then you have more learners involved at the same time? But then what happens to the rest of the class while those learners are involved in the activity? Or are all the learners involved at the same time? So think very carefully about the game or activity that you are planning to ensure that all learners are included, right? And if you are using resources, obviously you have been given one, but there will be additional resources. Make sure that these resources are included. You are then going to draw a design of your layout and you're going to include it in your final lesson plan submission. Now, students, because you're doing a recording at home, you are actually going to demonstrate this activity in your recording. So what you could then do is get some, or you could do this yourself while you're doing the lesson. I wouldn't advise while you're doing the lesson, before the lesson or after the lesson. Perhaps take a photo of the layout of the resources that you're using and you can paste that in the space provided, right? Remember to also reference all your research according to the formatting principles in the referencing guide. So we use the Harvard referencing system, and this guide is also found on ECI. You will then record yourself doing this role play lesson just as you have done when you did your storytelling assessment, right? And this recording must also be between 5 and 7 minutes long. It is your responsibility, students, that you check that your link is working correctly before submission, right? We have found endless emails from students after the due date of the storytelling submission where they're emailing us the links. I'm sorry, students, this is a formal assessment. It is your responsibility to ensure that because you've been given this assignment timeously, way in advance, you need to check that your link is working. You need to use it on multiple devices. Email it to a relative, email it to a sibling, email it to a friend, and ask them if they are able to view it. Because once you submit your link to us, and if we cannot open it, unfortunately, you will get a 0 for your recording. So you need to take on a bit of responsibility and ensure that you are submitting correctly. We do not want any student to be emailing us after hours or after the assessment has been submitted and then saying, I had a problem, I couldn't put my link in, or for whatever other reason, expecting the lecturers to now accept a submission after the due date, right? Students, there are assessment policies for a reason, and you need to adhere to that. Please take note of the mark allocation for assignment 4 in the rubric provided, right? So look carefully at this rubric, read your lesson plan, listen to your presentation, and ensure that you are adhering to the mark requirements, because we'll be using that rubric when we are awarding your marks. Right, so choose, now when you go to your teaching practice, when you come back after recess, you are going to choose either the storytelling lesson or the mathematics lesson, and you're going to present it at school for your teaching practice. Right, and because of the fact that you're going on study leave at the moment and you're then going to have your recess, this assignment will be due when you return from recess on the 12th of August 2021, right? Now, students, my advice to you is while you are in this momentum, please do not leave this for the last minute. Rather, attempt this assignment and keep it ready for submission instead of waiting when recess is over and then you're all frantically trying to get something completed. Then you're emailing your lecturers because you want an assessment. Remember, we are still in COVID times. Anything is possible. Right now, we do not know how the third wave is going to be affecting all of us. So my advice to you students is do it, get it out of the way so you know that you have to focus on your other assessments in your other modules, right? Remember, there's lots of other modules that you're working on. Assessments, some of the due dates are close. So if I was you, I would attempt this assignment and make sure that it's completed and ready for submission timelessly. Let us now look at a sample lesson plan, right? So students, this is taken directly from the lesson plan template, right? So obviously your student name would be the name, obviously that's your full name as you have registered here at Stadio. You will put in your student number that's given to you upon registration, the date that you are writing. Now, because this is an ITP100 assessment and you are working on it now, the date that you write this assignment will be the date that you put on your lesson plan. A common query that we've got from students is they don't know what group they belong to, right? So it's discussed here because we did this with the storytelling as well. So if you're a degree student, please go in circle A. And if you're a higher certificate student, circle B. Right, so this lesson is planned for grade R for the degree students and the higher certificate IP students. The lesson plan is for term 3. The subject that you've chosen is mathematics. The content area that was selected for this lesson is space and shape. This is one of the 5 content areas and is taken from the CAPS document, right? And this topic is also taken from the CAPS document, which is building 3D objects. And it was taken from page 50. So if I was a student, I will scan page 50 or copy page 50 and submit that in my lesson plan as well. Right, so your lesson objectives, students often misunderstand this. Remember, it's what you want your learners to know or to be able to do by the end of the lesson. They don't know this yet because you haven't taught this. So you need to say that they will be able to do it, right? Because you're going to teach it to them and they're going to learn how to do it. So by the end of this lesson, we've got here that learners will be able to identify basic shapes such as a circle, square, triangle, and rectangle. Then we said that learners will be able to build a 3D structure. Then we move on to the method of assessment. Now here, students, you need to understand the close link between your objectives and your method of assessment. Remember I said this is what you want your learners to know by the end of the lesson. So therefore, when you are doing the method of assessment, you need to assess what you want your learners to know. So basically you're assessing the outcomes, right? Or the objectives. So you look at the link that we've put in here. On the top here, we've got learners will be able to identify basic shapes, right? And then how do we assess this? We then say the teacher will ask the learners questions about the basic shapes as they build their 3D structures. So can you see, students, the link with that outcome or the objective to the method of assessment? Very, very important to show that link. Then the next one where we've got learners will be able to build a 3D structure, right? How do we assess this? The teacher will observe the learners as they build the 3D structure. Please ensure that you are writing full sentences. I don't want to see students writing one-word observation or one-word questioning. That will be marked incorrect, right? So adhere to that. The lesson introduction is usually 5 to 10 minutes. Here we are capturing the attention of our learners. We're not teaching the actual lesson here, but we're preparing the learners for what we're about to teach them. So the teacher will take the learners to the grassy patch in the outdoor play area. The teacher will hold the feely bag that contains different shapes in it. She will allow a few children to feel the shapes in the bag without actually looking in the bag, right? So then the teacher will assess the learner's prior knowledge about basic shapes by asking the following questions. So when the learners put their hands in their bags, into that bag, the feely bag, the teacher will ask, how does it feel? Does it have pointy corners? Does it feel round? Can you guess how many shapes that, or how many sides that shape has? So can you see that without actually doing the activity, the teacher is now assessing their prior knowledge, and this is what's leading up to what she's now going to be doing in the game or the activity. Now, students, can you see how detailed this lesson development is? We expect to see this when you are submitting. Some students just write a small quantity like this, and they expect to get full marks, right? So please ensure that this is the meatiest part of the lesson. This is where everything is discussed and how you're going to teach the concept, right? So in lesson planning, this is the section where we have to see it in detail. Here you will have step-by-step guidelines on what the teacher will be doing, how the lesson will be taught from the beginning of the actual teaching of the lesson to the end, right? So we need to see this in detail. We need to see evidence of teaching, and we need to see evidence of what the learners are doing. So let's look at this example. A pair of learners will be given a packet with stones and sticks. This would be pre-arranged by the teachers. Now, here you can see teachers as in plural. Perhaps there's a class assistant here as well. The teacher will orally tell the children that they will create a structure, such as a house, that will match the template given to them. See Appendix A. Very important, students. When you are referring to any templates, worksheets, or resources, we need to see it referenced and we need to see it attached here. Right? So obviously there'll be an image attached. The teacher will then tell the children that this exciting game is going to help them to learn about 3D shapes. The teacher will hand out a template to one child per group. The teacher will then allow the children to look at the template and discuss their shape. The learners will have to make a structure out of sticks, stones, from the stones and sticks that were given to them by the teacher. The children must follow the shape on the template, and this is pair work. The instructions for the activity, we want to see that as well. Sorry, students. The learners will find a comfortable space. The ground will be pre-marked by the teacher. Learners will be given a template of pattern or structure, Appendix A, and the learners will be instructed to open the bag and begin constructing using the resources from the packet to create their image. Right, so then you're going to have your design or your picture of the layout. So it's entirely up to you if you want to draw it, or if you want, like I said earlier, if you want to place that on the ground outside and take a photo of the resources that you're using, and you can then paste it in the space provided here. And if we see any evidence of this activity being done indoors, students, please note that you are going to be penalized. We want to see you doing this outdoors. Right, so the sample question, students, this is where students often struggle because they cannot ask the correct levels of questions. So you always remember, students, that you are asking basic questions first, but then you want to probe further, and in order to understand, so the learners themselves must be able to answer very lower order questioning to a more higher order questioning, right? So basic to more complex questions. So in level 1, you want them to display how they remember things, how they understand things. So you could ask them perhaps, how many sticks did you use to create the triangle for the roof of your house? In level 2, you want them to then apply what they've learned, right? So then you can say to them, explain how you used the shapes to make your house. In level 3, obviously now we're getting a bit more advanced. We want to probe further. You can then ask them, what do you think will happen to your house if you added more stones instead of the sticks? So can you see, students, how we're just not asking questions, who climbed the tree? What did he get, right? So all the levels of questioning, you need to ensure that you are asking them correctly. In the lesson consolidation, students, now remember you have like 5 to 10 minutes to end this lesson. Here you can recap the concepts that we learned, whatever skills were taught in the lesson. So you could perhaps say that the teacher will conclude the lesson by guiding one learner at a time to walk towards a completed shape. As soon as the learner stops at the shape, the rest of the children must shout out what the shape looks like, right? And then the resources that we used in this lesson, we've had stones, we've had sticks, and of course the template that was used. All right, now students, the reflection that you are completing can only be done after you teach a lesson. So when you're submitting this for ITP 100, please leave this section blank. However, if this is the lesson that you are using to teach when you go for your teaching practice, then when you're submitting this in your part 2 of your electronic portfolio, we will expect to see this lesson, this section completed in full, right? But basically, just to go over why or how you go about reflecting. So where it says, what will I do differently next time? So let's say, for example, you went to your teaching practice and this is the lesson your mentor allowed you to teach, right? So you'll reflect on the lesson and you'll think about aspects that perhaps went wrong in the lesson itself. What you will do then is state what happened. And then you will say that you are going to do whatever you've decided now. Perhaps you've said that the learners were very excited. They got distracted easily. We could not get them to focus on the task at hand. The next time, I will ensure that I have more activities to keep the learners or the rest of the learners occupied while one group is busy with the activity or the game. So basically say to us what happened in the lesson that you feel needed attention and what you are going to be doing next time to rectify this. Because this is how you grow as a teacher, right? You need to refine your practice. You need to find aspects that you can improve on. And none of us are perfect. Even when you start teaching at schools, when you qualify, you'll find that you reflect on lessons and you're always finding ways to improve on those lessons. And then what contributed to the success of the lesson? If you taught the lesson, perhaps there's activities that you did that ensured that there was, the learners were actively engaged. It was a success because of the approaches that you adopted. The learners were excited, they were fully involved and actively engaged. So write things like that, but don't say that my mentor teacher helped me and that's why it was a success, right? That is not a good enough reason to state that. But remember, I'm just giving you examples here. In this lesson plan, you are not reflecting. Right, your references. Remember, if you are accessing any websites, books, or if there's articles that you've looked at, it needs to be referenced. All of your sources must be acknowledged. That's very, very important. So in all your lesson plans, you are going to reference your curriculum document. So in this case, it's the mathematics, the grade R English mathematics that was used, and this was referenced. If, for example, we looked at the internet and we found information from there, then of course we need to also ensure that that website has been referenced as well. All right, students, so that takes me to the end of this presentation. I hope that this little video helps you when you're planning your lesson plan for your mathematics outdoor game. Please remember the due dates. Please remember the requirements or the instructions that were provided for this assessment. By all means, go back and watch this as many times as you need to. Watch the lecture videos, get a better understanding of why we want to take lessons outdoors. And I'm sure that many of your lecturers have explained to you why we teach mathematics and why we need to take some lessons on the outside. Good luck to all of you students. Enjoy your recess that's coming up, but please make sure that this assessment is submitted on time. Okay, so good luck to you.